Are we in the playoffs? Not exactly, but at least we're not the 49ers.
It's hot out there, so let's blow them off the line of scrimmage. Headline, Los Angeles.
Live from the RamCave, I'm Joe Terosian, and this is RamView, the December 2nd, 2024 edition, brought to you by Kistler Law Firm. Injured in an auto accident? Need help? Got questions? Call Kistler Law at 661-206-6990. That's Kistler Law at 661-206-6990. And check out KistlerLawFirm.com. That's one word, KistlerLawFirm.com. Kistler Law, they've been fighting for you since 92. And by Temple City Auto Repair. Having some auto issues? Get yourself some John and Henry at TempleCityAutoRepair.com. And of course, by Bench the app. Don't take a zero. Don't get a goose egg because you left a non-starting player in your fantasy lineup. Download Bench the app today and make that a thing of the past. All right. Like I said at the top, it wasn't pretty yesterday, but at least we're not the 49ers, right? You look at our team, young, inexperienced, inconsistent. You looked at their team, it's old, falling apart, right? You look at the Rams, you see new hotness. You look at the 49ers, you see old and busted. Old and busted, new hotness, right? There you go. All right. I always have low expectations when the Rams play in New Orleans, right? They pick out the win. They pick up the win, but there's just the Rams never play well in New Orleans. Even when I was a kid, it was always a slog. It was never a good game, right? It was never a well-played game by them. So my expectations are low. So I wasn't losing it at the end of the first half. In fact, I felt myself somewhat optimistic because it was just like the Bear game. Remember the Rams' first two possessions? They drove the length of the field, and then they had to settle for 2 field goals that made it 6-0. And when you have to settle for field goals when you should be scoring touchdowns, it always puts your future in doubt. And so when we came to the end of the first half, and after the way the Saints dominated the ball, especially in that first quarter, that they only came away with 6 points, I felt pretty confident, right? And you could see Sean McVay was hacked, right? He does the best masking job on the planet, but I think if you follow him Rams long enough, you know McVay is hacked. And the Rams put it together. They came out in the second half, did exactly what they needed to do. You look at this team, we're going to talk offensive line here and offense a little bit, but you look at this team and everything in the front seven is working. Everything in the front. In fact, I would say they're better now. I think we would all say they're better now than they were at the start of the season. Some of that is Jared Verse, even Byron Young, Braden Fisk. The young guys have taken a breath, and they're finishing plays now. So we got that. Could they do a better job? Of course they could do a better job, right? But then there's always that. I'm noticing this about Chris Shula's defense. It's a plus and a minus, right? The minus is usually a team coming out first moves the ball in the Rams, and then Shula, which is to me an incredible plus, makes the adjustment and things get shut down, and it doesn't look like it looked at the start of the game. Maybe the first drive, maybe the first couple of drives, Saquon Barkley, notwithstanding, they do seem to put it together. You watch the defense, right? I'm sitting there watching the defense yesterday, and if this had been last year's team, I'd have been a little more worried, but this team on defense generally is good for one big play every game. Every game. They didn't get any sacks yesterday, but as I'm watching that Saints drive at the end, and then they went for it on fourth down, and that was, of course, the Verse play. You knew it. I don't know. I don't know how you knew it, but you knew the Rams were due to make a play. That defense is going to make a play, and it's gone to another place. Not only have the young guys become a little more consistent, but also I do believe, and I was very slow to jump on this bandwagon, so I'm not saying I called it by any means, but I'm happy to purchase a ticket on this bandwagon now. Roseboom and Reader had their limitations. I think we all knew that. Spates and Roseboom is something different. Now, Spates can get lost a little bit still on defense, especially in coverage, but his legs, his activity, his quickness, and it's allowed Roseboom to be the best version of himself. And so, yeah, I do believe this defense, seeing Verse, Byron Young, Braden Fisk, Kobe Turner. I'm looking at this defense and I'm thinking the front seven is exceptional. And there's part of me that wonders if Aaron Donald feels like he retired a year too soon, because I think his presence would have made this the best front seven in the league. I think people would just be living in fear right now of the Rams. But with that said, Spates pairing with Christian Roseboom has been a winner. Finishing up with Spates here, as he gains experience, he's going to become real special. He's already 6'1", 235, a little bit light, but he can move. And according to PFF, his grading in PFF, if you're going to go with PFF, which a lot of people do, but kind of suspect, if he had enough snaps to qualify, Omar Spates would be ranking inside the top 10 of off-ball linebackers. Yeah. And Roseboom, again, a glorified special teamer, is exceptional. Has been playing really well in coverage. With that said, again, cracks in the secondary are getting worse. Darius Williams, he was played well this year, had a second straight bad game. He's in his 30s. We're looking at maybe he's slowing down in the back half of the season because he's played so much up front. Saw this with Akila Witherspoon last year. He slowed down in the second half. And again, that allows you to wonder why the Rams just recently signed former Redskin first-round pick Emmanuel Forbes, and we'll talk about that I guess we could talk about it now. He's only 23, but he was an incredible bust with the Redskins or the Taxkins, and they put him on the street less than 2 years after drafting him, and the Rams have picked him up. And the Rams, it's a contract investment because they'll have to pay off the rest of his salary, his rookie contract. I think it's going to cost them somewhere in the neighborhood of 15 rocks total, but it's worth a swing. If they can salvage him, then they've got some help in that room. But yeah, so the defense is good. It's not great, all right? Offensively, happy for Kyron Williams. Happier still for the offensive line. Steve Avila played a little bit better, but again, this wasn't the Eagles' defensive front, right? This was more like the Patriots' defensive front. And Stafford was under pressure quite a bit. So everyone gets excited. Bo Limmer had his struggles, right? And I made a note, is Bo Limmer going to be the guy going forward? Is he going to be the guy going forward? It's something to think about. If you look at his grade, I don't know if he was a 5. That's what PFF gave him. But if you look at Bo Limmer yesterday, yeah, he had his struggles. Now, running the ball, the Rams were great, and I'm glad they ran the ball. But yeah, Kyron Williams, Blake Corum got the ball, and they moved. But the offensive line did its job. Steve Avila was what he should have been against the Saints, maybe a little bit better he could have been. Alaric Jackson was what he should have been. Maybe he could have been a little bit better. Kevin Dotson is exactly who he is. Exceptional running the ball and run blocking, average in pass protection. And Havenstein was back, and that settles everything down anyway. So this is, Jonah Jackson aside, this is the best version of the Rams offensive line right now. I don't know about Jonah Jackson. It'd be nice if he got in there, but I don't think the Rams are going to mess with the continuity. Regarding Matthew Stafford, if anyone thinks moving off Matthew Stafford after the way he played yesterday is a good idea, then you're just not understanding how great Matthew Stafford is. And I'm just saying it right here. He's been woefully underpaid by the market. No one's really underpaid as a quarterback in the NFL. But looking at the quarterback market, he is underpaid. There's absolute dog meat making more money than him by double digits. And if he wants 60 rocks next year and he's still playing at this level, you know what the Rams need to do? They need to give Matthew Stafford 60 rocks, right? They just need to, because he's that good and you're not going to replace him. And as long as he's around, you have a shot. If you think this offensive line is just average right now, without Stafford, it would be even worse. It just would be. Speaking of the receivers, I don't think he played poorly yesterday. And we're going to get into some other stuff on the other side of the break here. I don't think Cooper Kupp played poorly. PFF, of course, grades him terrible. Who cares what PFF says, all right? You saw with your eyes. Cooper Kupp is still solid, but doesn't Cooper Kupp look old? right? He just looks old out there. And I'm not saying get rid of him. Not saying cut him. He's making 29 rocks this year. He's making 29 rocks next year. And in 2026, he's scheduled to make another 27 rocks, right? But in 2026, his dead cap hit falls to 7.4. You look at him and you wonder, is this guy maybe contemplating retirement, right? Could he be contemplating retirement? I also think whether he retires or not, the Rams need to spend some draft capital on another receiver. Yeah, we all like Jordan Whittington, but DeMarcus Robinson's 30. He's on a one-year contract. Tyler Johnson's on a one-year contract. Tutu Atwell's contract is up. So you're going to need to draft another receiver, especially the way Puka Nacua plays so physically. You're going to need to draft another receiver. And maybe Kupp goes back to the third receiver as a third and Renfro type of guy that Stafford could depend on for the next couple of years. But whatever it is, I like Cooper Kupp. I don't think he's playing poorly, but he just looks old out there, right? He just looks old. Let's look at the offensive line. Alaric Jackson graded out 71 in pass protection, 68 in run blocking. I think that's fair. Steve Avila, 86 in pass protection, 68 in run blocking. Again, who did we do this against? We did it against the Saints. Saints did not have a great pass rush coming in. Their secondary is actually pretty good. Their secondary is middle of the road, but I think their secondary is even better than people say. Kool-Aid McKinstry and those guys, they did a solid job. Kevin Dotson, 62 against pass protection, 90 in run blocking. He's the Kevin Dotson that he was last year. And Rob Havenstein, 73 in pass protection, 79 and run blocking. And the good news is no Joe Noteboom sightings. There was no sightings of Joe Noteboom yesterday. Okay, I'm Joe Terosian. I was a sports writer for 21 years. And I am on early today because I have work to do tonight. And we usually come on at 5 on Mondays. But we came live right now. So we're going to take a little hit in our audience participation. But we want to thank you guys that do join us now and that you join us later. Drop in questions. You can drop in questions after the show, drop in questions during the show. I see we got a couple here. We're going to get to them. And so cool. We're here. Sports writer for 21 years. Now I do RamView thanks to our sponsors at Kistler Law, Bench the App, and Temple City Auto. I also write books. My books are available on Amazon. My latest book, Game Day in the RamCave, is doing pretty well. It's on Amazon right now. It's a fictional book about a NFC championship game between the Rams and Packers. So if you want to check that out and support the show, it's great. We don't have a paywall. We don't have a Patreon account. So we depend on outside support. And it all keeps me employed in my day job. I pastor a small church in Burbank called Burbank Faith Nazarene, and you can find us right here on Burbank Faith Virtual, burbankfaithvirtual.com, Burbank Faith Virtual, all across social media. So I did see we had a couple questions come in. Teddy Belcher, 4K ultra wide. Do you like the Chargers? Oh man, that is a question. That is a great question. Okay. Yeah. No. Do I like the Chargers as a team? Jim Harbaugh, Justin Herbert, you could see what's happening. All the games they were losing under Mike McCoy, Anthony Lynn, Brandon Staley, all those games they were losing, they're winning now. That's Harbaugh, and that's Harbaugh just doing things, right? The Chargers, I think, and there's got to be some real powerful Harbaugh mojo to break through. But I always think because of their ownership, because of Spanos, the Spanos family, they're always going to fall short. And every time I pick the Chargers, asking them to do a solid, hey, like beat the Cardinals, they let me down. I picked them against the Ravens last week, and they let me down. I had a feeling they were going to beat the Falcons, but I took the Falcons because I didn't want to take them anymore. I love Harbaugh. I love Herbert. There are parts of this team I love, but they're going to struggle right now because they lost J.K. Dobbins, and they only have wide receiver issues now. They got running back issues, and their schedule is not necessarily favorable. Right now, they're 8-4, but if they get the Chiefs, a playoff team, they get the Bucks, who are 6-6 and tied. They're behind the Falcons right now because they lost both times they played the Falcons, but that's a team playing for a playoff spot or a division title. The Broncos, they're playing the Broncos in 3 weeks. Broncos are 7-5. They beat the Browns tonight. They're 8-5. That's a playoff team. And then you got the Patriots and the Raiders. So the next 3 weeks are critical for the Chargers. And it's the Chargers, man, right? I mean, if you're a longtime Charger fan, you know what that's like. I am very big on Justin Herbert, though. Michael Negretti, Pastor Joe, you're early today. Yes, I am. Michael Negretti, see, I told you, CMC break a leg. Well, I think one of the things we put out there was, and this goes to around the NFL and other places. We did put it out. Did you, as a 49er fan, did any 49er fan out there think, a reasonable 49er fan, think that you were going to get a third straight healthy season out of Christian McCaffrey? His last few years in Carolina, he was broken down repeatedly. And then he had that half season and full season in Frisco, and he was lights out. He was great. But that was 2 full seasons of health. And he just wasn't exhibiting that. I know, because I drafted him on my fantasy teams. And so when he came back this year, when he was out this year, when he came back, I think, Mike, we were talking here, how long do you expect him to play before he gets hurt again? And sure enough, unfortunately for him, you don't want to see anyone get hurt, but he went down, and now he's lost for the season. Now, 6 weeks, they said, but 6 weeks. The 49ers don't have 6 weeks, right? 49ers, they're 5-7. They don't have 6 weeks. So, yeah, they've got some issues there. And they lost Jordan Mason, their backup, who's run for like 800 yards this year and who's looked good. They lost him to an ankle injury, and he was put on IR as well. So they're going to have to go with Guerrero probably the rest of the way. Now, he's not bad, but when you see what's happening, Trent Williams is out, Aaron Banks was out, their left guard was out. Dominic Puni has replaced John Feliciano at right guard. I can't believe I know the 49ers offensive line, right? And then they're running Colton McKivitz, who's middle of the road at best at right tackle. What are you going to do? They gave too much money to Brandon Ayuk. He's gone. Deebo Samuel's dropping passes. George Kittle is in and out of the lineup all the time. Frisco's in trouble. I heard Fred Warner. Fred Warner had cramps yesterday, but he's got a bad leg or bad ankle. This team's in serious trouble. And you don't want to see anyone get hurt, but it couldn't happen to a better squad, right? It couldn't happen to a better squad. So, Frisco's got issues. Let's see, Michael Negretti, the Bills is a tough game coming up for the Rams. Yeah, we're going to get into that one on Wednesday. Let's kind of bask in a victory until we get into that one. I think the Bills, with 6 games left, everyone was saying the Rams could go 5-1, and that's the idea of Rams beating the Saints, which they did, losing to Buffalo, and then running the table against Frisco, the Jets, Cardinals, and Seahawks. And Seahawks are looking pretty good right now. Speaking of former Seahawks, Jamal Adams was signed to the Lions practice squad, with everyone dropping like flies in Detroit on the defensive side of the ball. That's a pretty good signing. Now, Adams' legs are pretty much gone. My feeling is you can move Adams. Now they lost Malcolm Rodriguez for the year. Anzalone's out with a busted forearm. The way Adams plays, you could probably move him to one of the linebacker spots, because he's more of a box guy anyway. You're not going to use him in coverage. Looking around other places in the NFL, I heard Colin Cowherd say it this morning, and he's saying it because it's December, right? And the 8-5 deeply flawed Ravens are struggling, right? And it was going to come out, right? The Ravens, this is not Lamar Jackson's fault, right? And he's right about that. I'm not saying it's all Lamar Jackson's fault, but it's what we always hear every year, right? In October and November, in that glow, the Ravens are always a Super Bowl team. Watch out for the Ravens, right? And now it gets real. We're 1st of December, and Colin Cowherd got first in line. I'm not slamming him for it, but there's going to be a whole bunch of other people that get in line behind him and start saying, well, it's not Lamar Jackson's fault. It's not Lamar Jackson's fault. Lamar Jackson took the money. And part of taking the money means you got to produce, even when your team can't afford to add other pieces maybe around you. I never thought I'd see a Ravens defense look bad. And a Ravens defense is looking bad. And I think Justin Tucker is sucking up all the oxygen in the room. Everyone's just looking at him. But have you ever asked yourself, why are they settling for so many field goals that Justin Tucker, of course, is missing? It's because they're a flawed team. And again, I like Lamar Jackson, but I'm tired, I think, of his fanboys always coming up with an excuse and why it's not his fault. Georgia, looking at college football, Georgia Tech was great. I might not like the 2-point shootout rule that they do with their overtimes. I think there's a better way, but that game was a white knuckler. Regarding USC, watching them play, was it really all Miller Moss's fault, right? Was it really all Miller Moss's fault? I don't know. I'll let somebody else closer to that tell me what it was. Tell me the truth on that one. And I'm kind of sorry we're probably not going to see Colorado in the playoffs, right? They're very entertaining. Deion Sanders done a great job. Now, the cockiness of Shedeur and, the watch and all that kind of stuff. No, it's not. It's not something that you want to buy into. It's kind of stupid. And I have some doubts about Shedeur because I don't know if he's ever faced any adversity because his last name is Sanders, right? What happens if he goes to a really cruddy team and they don't hire dad as head coach, right? So you want to see how he's going to deal with adversity because I don't know how he deals with adversity. Quarterbacks need to deal with adversity. And it's tough to get your first adversity at the pro level. But I'm glad what Deion's done. People don't like it, but you know what? Too bad. If it messes over the NCAA, what a joke of a program or an organization that is, then I'm all for it. So good for Colorado. Good for the Rocky Mountain Colorado Prime, right? There you go. And then finally, Ohio State, Michigan. How can Michigan not have a quarterback go into the shoe and beat an Ohio State team that's ranked top 3 in the country that's going to be playing for maybe a playoff or the national championship in a few weeks? And they went in there without a quarterback and beat the Buckeyes. And how do the Buckeyes not beat a team without a quarterback in the shoe with so much on the line? And we'll go from there. How does their head coach, Ryan Day, stand back while his players go and attack the Michigan players planting the flag? Now, is the flag planting somewhat provoking? I'll argue that, yeah, it probably is. But you know what? There was the stupid thing that I didn't get about Ryan Day and the Buckeyes is as this brawl ensues, you still have something to play for. The Michigan season is over. That's it. They finished 7-5. They beat you. You're still alive. You're going to the playoffs. And you allow your players to get involved in something that could lead to their suspensions? What are you thinking? I think he's a weak coach. I think he's a pretty boy that doesn't deal well with adversity, right? And Ohio State losing that game, I just don't get it. I coached a lot of, many years ago, I coached a lot of high school basketball players in church leagues and different things. And we always got our butt kicked. I don't want to say I was a bad coach, but I didn't have tons of talent either. And we took a lot of butt kicking. And sometimes you took a butt kicking from teams you really should have beat, right? And my guys would get mad. And I would tell them, I'd take a timeout late in the game. We're down by 20. I'd take a timeout and say, if you don't like it, do something about it. Do something about it while you're on the court, while the clock's still running, while the game's still going on. I don't want to hear about how you're going to fight somebody when this is over. Jack Sawyer, the big linebacker from Ohio State, was a real bad dude when it came to ripping apart the Michigan flag and being all bad dude. But where was he for 4 quarters? Where was he, right? And so, yeah, that was my thing with my guys. In fact, when my teams were getting blown out and I felt like they had a lack of effort or they weren't focused, I would burn all my timeouts. And I would tell the other coach to use his timeouts. And I'd tell him, you don't have to call off the press, call off the dogs, we used to say. Just keep running it in the ground because I knew it was the best thing for my team. And I wasn't going to be coaching any future NBA players, but you were going to be coaching people that were going to go on in life. And you have to know that life is hard. And life never asks if you want to break. Life just keeps kicking your butt. And I think Ryan Day failed his team there where he should have said, no, you got your butt kicked at home. Tell me what that feels like. Let them plant that flag. Watch it and get your butt into the locker room. You're fortunate you still get to play some more games, but you better deal with it, pal, and not let it happen again, right? But and the other thing I want to say about Michigan, Ohio State, I can't stand the announcers always going to ugly. Oh, this is an ugly scene. This is an ugly scene. Again, I'm exposing my immaturity here, but I like seeing a little bit of passion. I like seeing somebody that cares. I grew up watching a different NFL. I can't stand all the handshakes and the hugging and all this stuff after a game. It makes me feel like that if you're feeling that way about your opponent, that maybe you're not that invested in the kicking their butt on the field. And I know you're questioning someone's professionalism, but no, I do. I don't like the handshakes and everyone, we're all getting together and we're all just buddies. We're exchanging jerseys and signing stuff. I don't like it. I don't like it. Again, sports is about competition, right? It's about playing hard and it's about competition. Okay, coaches on the hot seat. Robert Saleh, Dennis Allen, Matt Eberflus, gone. Brian Dable, he should terminate himself. Doug Peterson, Gerard Mayo, he should be a one and done. Mike McCarthy, I think he doesn't have to worry about getting fired because I think they're going to let him finish the season, and then Homeboy's a free agent and he can do what he wants, and I think somebody will want him. And I've kind of taken Sirianni down off this list. David Canales is not going on the list because Carolina's kind of come back up and they're playing ball. All right, we did get some folks in here. Thanks, guys, for clicking on. Let's see here. Michael Negretti. Does the 49ers coach Kyle Shanahan lose his job after this season? No, I don't think he's going to lose his job. I really don't. He'd have to have another season like this. But you know, the book is out, right? The book is out. And John Lynch has to make some hard calls. And everyone's calling for it now. I personally don't want them to do this, but they just need to become sellers. They really do. I think Brock Purdy, they should sign him. And then I think they foolishly gave Brandon Ayuk that contract, right? They're overpaying Debo. They gave too much money to Fred Warner, who's good, but an off-ball linebacker doesn't move the needle that way. They did sign Diamador Lenore. That was a good signing. But, you know, Nick Bosa is always banged up. George Kittle's getting old. Christian McCaffrey, right? I don't know if he's got, 2 years left in his contract? I'm not sure what he has left. And so, yeah, the 49ers, I hope they re-sign everybody and keep living this dream. But this dream is over, right? I didn't know it would be this much of a crash and burn. I know there's been a lot of injuries, but who cares about injuries, right? Did anyone care about the Rams in 2022? Do you know what I had to put up with from Steeler fan Rob coming on this board every single day in 2022 going, hey, when the Rams going to run it back? No one feels sorry for you if you're injured. No one cares, right? So you lose, right? You got to deal with it. And the 49ers are losing right now. And you know, I don't feel sorry for them at all, right? And they're making bad choices. Rams are inconsistent. Rams are not going to go to the Super Bowl this year, you know, unless there's some really wild thing that happens, you know, from my lips to the football god's ears. But you know what? You can see a future for the Rams. You can see a future. I think the 49ers thought they were this close twice in the last 5 years, and they blew it. And regarding their head coach, I cannot stand hearing them talk about, or anybody talk about, Brock Purdy in that Super Bowl last year. That loss was on Kyle Shanahan. He threw Steve Wilkes under the bus, but it was Kyle Shanahan's fault they lost that game. And I'll say that until I'm off the air. Anyway, I don't think they're going to lose him. Let's see. Samuel Ainsley. Howdy, Joe. PFF is overrated. Bunch of armchair quarterbacks. You know, I know the organization. I think that's a Collingsworth company, or it was. He started it. I think it's a great place to start, Sam. Appreciate your clicking on. I think it's a good place to start, but I would never let it overrule what you see with your eyes, right? Does that make sense? Because there's some things that are hard to grade. Some of the stuff for the average fan, for most of us, when we're watching, it's like, you know, technique and where they're lining up and all those things. Some of that stuff can be a little hard, but when you start seeing where the pass rush is coming from, right? When you start seeing who's getting blown up on run plays, your eyes tell you something, right? And I think a good example, I think it was the Raider game. They gave great scores to the Rams offensive line in the Raider game, and that offensive line was putrid against the Raiders. And so, right now they got Kyron Williams rated 44 out of 60 running backs. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. Either they're overthinking or they've got people on there that aren't really watching the games. They're just using the stats. That's all I could think of. Curtis Olson. Curtis, thank you for joining us. I don't know if I've had you on here before, Curtis. V8, Jared Verse is a man. Tell me I'm wrong. I would never tell you you're wrong about Jared Verse. Dude is the dude, man. He is the dude. I'm all into Jared Verse, right? I was hopeful when the Rams drafted him. You know, it was kind of providential the way the draft worked with 10,000 offensive players going first. thank you to the Bengals for taking, what was it, Amari Sims, and I think it was who was the Alabama guy that got taken by the Vikings. His mind's blanking on me. I wanted to call him Terrion Arnold, but that's the cornerback. And the Rams got Verse. The Rams got Jared Verse. That awesome. And again, Ram fans have to appreciate. I could hear the complaint. We heard the complaining when they gave up a second round, next year's second round, to move up to get to spot 39 to take Braden Fisk. And right, they knew what they were doing. And so I think it's exciting. I'm really excited about Jared Verse. I really am. I wish Aaron Donald would come back for a cameo and get everyone together just to see what this band would look like. Tim Burns, nice early start. Looked like Kyron was playing to stay a Ram. Kyron played great, right? And I think whatever Kyron Williams' issues are fumbling the ball, not that anyone wants to fumble the ball, but you don't doubt a fifth-round guy from Notre Dame. First, you got to have the academics to go to Notre Dame. You don't doubt a fifth-round guy from Notre Dame not being committed and fully vested. Maybe sometimes, though, so committed, so focused that, or, so putting so much effort in that he can, drop the ball sometimes. You don't want it to be a problem. Everyone loves Kyron Williams. I do too. If he plays like he played yesterday, you want him to get that second contract. And again, that's the reason Blake Corum was drafted. And no, I saw that ridiculous link. I didn't click on it. I don't know who posted it. No, the Rams haven't done a disservice to Blake Corum this year. Did you guys see that link around somewhere on social media? No, Blake Corum is getting exactly what he needs this year. Exactly. He carried a heavy load last year in Michigan. He carries a very light load this year. And then I expect his game to be added to as we go forward in these next few years with him. So, yeah, I do agree. Tim Burns, Buffalo game is going to be ugly, I think. Yeah, there is part of me, there is that part of you that says hope, but there is part of me that says, you know what? Let's start Jimmy G. Let's start Ronnie Rivers. Let's put Joe Noteboom, Jonah Jackson, and all them back in the lineup. Let's keep people healthy tonight, right? Or next week, right? But that's not going to happen. And hey, maybe Buffalo is riding too much of a high. At some point, maybe Buffalo has to come back down to earth. They've been playing great ball. And maybe, could be, possibly, right? What do they say in the NFL? Any given Sunday, right? So it could be ugly. Michael Negretti, Pastor Joe, when you got your butts kicked, did your guys throw profanity with scriptures? No. My guys were generally, how do I say this? They were outreach work. Most of my guys were guys that we were working with them. They weren't necessarily attending church, and they started coming to church because they were on the basketball team and stuff. And so they never incorporated scripture with profanity. But yeah, there could be the occasional profane word there that we held them in check pretty good. I had great guys. Tim Burns, did Lawrence ever wake up? Dude is going to the tour route. Yeah, that was brutal. That was a brutal hit. And yeah, Shahir, that guy, I don't care about what his past is, right? I don't care about him being a Muslim, and I don't think he did it because Trevor Lawrence is a Christian. All I saw was the dude go forward after he saw him going in the slide, and I saw the forearm go up. Yeah, I mean, I'm surprised, if Braden, was it Joe Scherf or Braden Scherf? Who was the one? Braden Scherf, the lineman for the Jaguars. If he'd have gotten his hands on him, I don't think Shahir would be alive. I think he'd be killed because I think those guys wanted his scalp. And, and I didn't like the apology today because basically he counter-punched in his apology, right? He posted an apology, didn't mean to hurt him. Okay, fine. That's all you got to say. But then he talks about Islamophobia and racism and all this kind of stuff and using fans as an example. Fans yelling from the stands. Come on. Fans are always yelling from the stands, right? And, I have fans accuse me of being anti-Catholic, believe it or not, and anti-Hispanic. I mean, it happens all the time. People say the dumbest things, right? And so, by the way, my wife's from Argentina. To start counterpunching with Islamophobia and racism, no. The dude, either he's brain dead or he did it deliberate. I'm going to go that he's brain dead because He put that forearm up. He drove into him, right? And he's lucky the Jaguar players didn't kill him. That's where he should be grateful. He should have said, with all my heart, I'm really sorry. I lose focus in the game. And thank you to Jacksonville Jaguar players for not killing me, because they could have killed him, right? Because that was bad. That was bad, right? It was. Tim Burns, I heard an announcer say verse defensive rookie and the year in the same sentence. Nice. Yeah, I guess so. I haven't really thought about that. It was like, who was it last year? Yeah, it was Kobe Turner, right? And they gave it to Will Anderson because he was the second overall pick in last year's draft. And Kobe Turner by far had a better year than Will Anderson in the trenches doing what he did. And so I don't really care about those awards. I just don't. In fact, we could rattle off baseball MVPs, but I can't really rattle off NFL MVPs because I just don't care. I don't care. I do not care. Football doesn't lend itself to that. It just doesn't. And maybe that's a good thing. Thanks, guys, for asking questions. Please throw them in there. I'm going to look at NFC playoff picture right now. Division leaders. Lions are 11-1, lead the North. Eagles are 10-2, hottest team in football. Even though Detroit's won 10 in a row, everyone's leading Philly right now in the East. And then the Seahawks are 7-5. That was a huge win for them over the Jets yesterday. Bad news for the Rams, but good news for the Seahawks. It was a good win. And then the Falcons, they're still hanging on in the AFC South, 6-6, because they beat the Buccaneers twice. Vikings are 10-2, and this is who they close their schedule with. They get the Falcons and the Bears, so that's 12 wins right there. And then maybe in 3 weeks when they play the Seahawks, they can do the Rams a solid, and then they finish with the Packers and Lions. So, yeah, it could be a big deal here. So, hold on one second. I got Stan Kroenke texting me. And here we go. Sorry, Stan, I can't join the party. Okay, great. There we go. And then you got Packers are 9-3. They get the Lions on Thursday. Should be a great game. Then they get the Seahawks. They got a game against the Saints, which they should win. But then you get the Vikings, and they close with the Bears and the Texans. The Texans get New Orleans, Philly, Falcons, and Cowboys. Tampa Bay gets, they're 6-6. They're on the outside looking, and they jumped ahead of the Rams. So technically, 7 teams in the NFC make the playoffs. Tampa Bay is number 8. Cardinals right now are number 9. Rams are 10. That's how far back we are. So it's all going to be the division, guys. It's got to be in the division. And so that's where the Rams are at. Rams close out the season. Bills, Jets, 49ers, Cardinals, Seahawks. If you can go 4-5, you got a chance. But there is a possibility. I hate to think of it. There is a possibility. You could be 10-7. You could be 10-7 and not make the playoffs. And if the Rams get to 10-7, great. That's awesome, right? Cardinals, on the other hand, are 6-6. They get the Seahawks, Patriots, Panthers, Rams, 49ers. So they've got 2 solids left. That's the Rams and the Seahawks. 49ers are fading. Panthers are playing better. And then, of course, the Patriots. AFC, Chiefs are 11-1, Bills 10-2, Steelers 9-3, Texans 8-5. Chargers are now in the 5th spot. They're 8-4. Ravens are 8-5. They get an off week, and then they come back against the Giants. That'll make everyone feel good. And then they get the Steelers, but then they coast with the Texans and the Browns. Texans aren't playing well. Ravens could finish 11-6. Broncos tonight, Browns, they're 7-5. They go to 8-5. Then they get the Colts in a critical one. If the Broncos beat the Colts in 2 weeks after winning tonight, they basically shut the door on the Colts season. And then they get the Chargers, Bengals, and Chiefs to close out the year. That could say a lot about the future. And there we go. All right. Let's see. Any other thoughts come in here? USA Expat, thanks for joining us. If it comes down to the Lions versus the Eagles, I'm 100% behind the Lions. Actually, I'm behind the Eagles. Really? I'm pro-Lion. I want to see the line. I like Dan Campbell. I like Brad Holmes. I want to see them do well. I know all that stuff that went on last year, but I can't stand the Eagles. I'm just not an Eagle guy at all. And so, I'm going with the Lions. But I'll say this. Lions are just dropping like flies. I don't know if I posted this on Facebook or or Twitter or X, or if I just said it on the last show, somehow I just don't get the feeling we're going to see the Lions and Chiefs in the Super Bowl. I just don't. I think you could end up seeing Eagles and Bills in the Super Bowl. You really could. I think yeah. And think about the Eagles though. Everything changes on the Eagles if Saquon gets hurt. Everything changes. If they have to go back to a place where they are dependent on Jalen Hurts to make the big throw, they're going to be in trouble, because even having great receivers, Jalen Hurts is not capable of making big throws, not consistently. And I think he's a good quarterback, but they need Saquon if anything happens there. All right, if the college football playoff was going to start today, Oregon, Texas, and Boise State likely would get the bye. SMU by victory, they believe. I think they would play Clemson in the ACC final. SMU would get a bye; they would win, and they're projecting Arizona State against Penn State, Indiana at Georgia, Ohio State at Tennessee, Alabama at Notre Dame. I'd love to see Alabama at Notre Dame. I would really love to see that game. Again, a Southern team come north. Arizona State to Penn State, that's not exactly what I'm looking for, but that's okay. Indiana at Georgia, if Georgia wins that game, which they should, they'd have to go to Oregon the way this one is set up right now. And that's kind of exciting. And Ohio State at Tennessee, I think they'd have to go, winner of that game would have to go to Texas. So it was a crazy week in college football. Yeah. I don't know what to say about USC, but was it really all Miller Moss's fault? That's all I could say. Other questions rolled in here. Let's see. Michael Negretti, Pastor Joe, what did you think of the pass that was tipped at the line of scrimmage? I thought his arm was going forward. I thought his arm was going forward. Are you talking about the Derek Carr one that Braden Fisk picked up? Yeah, that was going forward. I had no problem with that. I thought definitely it was a fumble, and I think they ruled it a fumble in the Rams at the end of the Rams Saints game. I think that's what it was. But yeah. Okay, let's see. Tim Burns, Lions over Eagles, Chiefs over Buffalo, Lions over Chiefs. Okay. All right. I don't hate the Chiefs. I kind of like the Chiefs, to tell you the truth. I love how they keep finding a way. I'm not going to be burned if they're there. Although I'd like to see Josh Allen get his ring and just be done with it, right? You just want to see these guys get a ring so that you can move the conversation on to other things. Okay, a couple things about the Rams. Speaking more offensively, I did bring up Rosebroom. I already talked about him. I'm looking at my notes here. Let's talk Tutu Atwell, okay? Atwell had 40 catches last year. This year, with 6 games left, 5 games left, he's got 32 catches. He's made key catches in all the, last 5 games for the Rams, right? And he's played in all 12 this year. He's got a role. He's not a bust. And he's going to get a contract next year somewhere. I wish it was here, but this guy's an NFL player. And, yeah, I'm glad they ran that, reverse. I don't want to call it a jet sweep, but a reverse to him. Yeah. Should he have cut it north a little bit quicker instead of trying to go wide? Yeah, he should have cut it north. But he is a receiver, and he has Stafford's trust. And I like him. You got 32 catches off the bench, essentially, from Tutu Atwell, right? 32 catches. Demarcus Robinson is 28. Tyler Johnson, 22. So Atwell has proven himself. He has proven himself. And I think going forward, he's a guy you can depend on. He's got hands and he's fast. As my friend Rich Whittington says from Mid-Valley Sports, he's a big Colt fan. He says, the only problem with Atwell is there's just not enough of him. Now, speaking of pass catching, okay, have you noticed how the Rams tight ends have disappeared from the offense this last month pretty much? On the course of the season, Davis Allen only has 6 catches. Colby Parkinson has 26 catches. And Hunter Long has 5. So that's 32, 37 catches from tight end spot, right? I can understand why maybe some fans are getting excited about Tyler Higbee coming back. The last 3 weeks, Davis Allen has 0 catches. Hunter Long has 0 catches. Colby Parkinson has 3. 1, I think, in the last, each of the last 3 games. That's it. 3 catches in the last 3 games from the Ram tight ends, right? 34 prior to that, the first 9 games, the last 3, They've only got 3 catches. And so that's part of the Rams offense that has just kind of disappeared. Now, if they're just using those guys to block down with the get down, I understand it. We're cool. But it is an interesting dynamic that has kind of developed there, that they're not even being targeted right now. They are not even being targeted. I should have looked up targets. Something to think about going forward as we look at Rams draft capital. 2025 Rams right now have a first rounder, 2 3s, a 4, 3 6s, and a 7th round pick. But when you start prioritizing the things the Rams need in their offseason wish list, I hope Emmanuel Forbes, I hope he turns into something special, but the Rams need to draft a cornerback. They do. You got an interior defensive lineman issue, right? You got to address that. Bobby Brown's played solid, but are they going to give him another contract? We don't know. And so they're going to need to address that issue. They have to address the offensive line. Just in terms of, maybe it doesn't have to be a number 1 pick, but they got to go back to the well again, maybe in the 3rd round, and find another offensive lineman, because you don't know what you got right now in Jonah Jackson. He remains a mystery. Bo Limmer's got his limitations as of now. Maybe they can develop him even more. And then Rob Havenstein's getting older. And Joe Noteboom's likely done. So there's issues here on the offensive line. And given what I said recently about Cooper Kupp, again, Jordan Whittington's an undrafted free agent. Tyler Johnson will be a free agent. Demarcus Robinson's going to be turning 30. If he's not 30 already, he's going to be a free agent. And Puka Nacua, as the way he plays the game, maybe a blessing in disguise that maybe he missed 7 games this year, because he just plays way too physical. And he takes a lot of punishment. Okay, let's see here. Michael Negretti, use Tutu more. He caught some passes yesterday. Yeah, Tutu Atwell's a part of this offense, and he needs to remain part of this offense. Tim Burns, McVay ran more in important downs this game. I agree, he did. I will admit, though, when they threw the touchdown pass to Nacua, because I think the first down play, he threw it out of the end zone, and I was furious. I said, why did they pound the ball? Because I think they were at the 7. And then he threw the pass to Nacua, and I was like, no. Yes. It's like, just pound the ball. Pound it. And by the way, pound it. Just pound the ball, right? And again, it opens things up. And again, I have to say, I thought the Saints secondary was good, and I think it helped the Saints pass rush. But the Saints pass rush is not great, has not been great this year. Their front 7 has not been great this year. And our offensive line played okay, right? Against a superior front, the Eagles, they looked horrible. Against less than superior front, like the Patriots, they were passable. And now you're going to face Greg Rousseau, Von Miller, and all that stuff in Buffalo. Let's see how they match up. There's going to be some issues there going forward. All right, let's look at the rest of this week. We talked about Bears, Lions. Injuries are mounting for the Lions, but they pulled out the win. Cowboys are 5-7. They could derail some stuff for people. I don't think they're going to the playoffs. Green Bay, I think, is playing really well. Like I said, they don't know what they don't know. And I think they're going to give the Lions fits on Thursday. Now, will they win? I'm not saying they're going to win right now, but the Lions are like the Chiefs. There's a bad loss somewhere in this next month that's going to hit them. Now, it's not going to be the end of the world loss, and I don't count the Chiefs' loss to the Bills as a bad loss, right? You lost to the Bills, right? You can lose to the Bills. It's okay. But there's going to be a bad loss for the Chiefs and the Lions sometime real soon. Raiders, Chief, we talked about that one. Okay. Chargers, Falcons. Falcons are just, I don't know what to say, right? You're still in first place. You might want to stick with Kirk Cousins and see what he can bring you back. Chargers got running back issues, wide receiver issues. They pulled out a win. They're 8-4. Schedule's going to get a little tougher down the stretch. Kind of rooting for Harbaugh and Herbert, but I'm not rooting for the Chargers, if that makes sense. Steelers, Bengals. Steelers got a big win. Bengals have no defense. but the Steelers gave up 38 points. Now, I know there was a pick six involved there, but yeah, Steelers are 9-3. And do you think they would have won that game yesterday with Justin Fields? I don't think they would have won that game yesterday with Justin Fields. Texans, Jaguars. Texans are hanging on barely, right? They won 23-20. They've got issues there, and it's not CJ Stroud. That offensive line is bad, and Texans look like they're 8-5. They're probably going to pull off the division. They got a 2-game lead. They beat the Colts twice, but they're a one and done in the playoffs. Cardinals at Vikings. I was a little nervous there. Vikings pulled it together, got the win they should get for a team that's talking about being in contention. And we just needed the Cardinals to come to earth. And there was a few flashes yesterday where the old Kyler appeared, right? The body language, the shaking of the head. I love that in a Cardinal quarterback, right? I don't know if I'd love it for my team, but I love it in a Cardinal quarterback. Colts, right? Anthony Richardson isn't ready to play, but he keeps playing. They went for the 2-point conversion, won the Adam Vinatieri Bowl. They're up 25-24. They're 6-7, right? They're going to need a big stumble by the Texans to take the South, but I don't think it's going to happen. Seahawks are 7-5. Jets couldn't do us a solid. Aaron Rodgers is done. And that one sucked because that looked like there was a possibility there that the Seahawks could fall to 6-6. Titans at Texans. I foolishly took the Titans, the Taxkins, I'm sorry. And the Taxkins won. Probably excited about the name Redskins returning sometime soon in the future, or at least on the helmet. I don't know how you have it on the helmet, not have it as the team name, but we'll go from there. Buccaneers dodged a bullet. Bryce Young is playing really well, or better than he was. He didn't look like he even belonged in the league at the start of this year, but he's really come on. Credit to Dave Canales, the head coach. Maybe the Panthers aren't an easy out for some of these teams going forward at the end of the year. Buccaneers are now 6-6. They pulled that thing out in overtime thanks to the Chuba Hubbard fumble. And they're basically a tiebreaker out of first place in the NFC South. Eagles, Ravens. Again, we talked about that one. Eagles are solely dependent on Saquon, and Ravens are lucky to be 8-5. 49ers Bills last night was beautiful. I love the snow. I heard Skip Bayless says he doesn't like snow games. I love snow games. To me, that's football. And then tonight you got Browns, Broncos, and the Reuben Drones Bowl. I'm going with the Broncos. I need Bo Nix. I'm in 4 fantasy leagues. I've won all 3 of my games. I got 1 left, and I'm down by about 40 points. I need Bo Nix to throw 4 touchdown passes and run for like 2 touchdowns, and then I'll have a clean sweep for my fantasy league. So there you go. All right. Let's see. Michael Negretti. We need a cornerback, linebacker, OT, and tight end. I would have agreed with you on the linebacker stuff, but I'm interested to see how Spates develops in the offseason because I don't believe Reader's coming back. I think the team likes Reader unless there's an injury. I don't think he's coming back. And I think the same – you never know with Roseboom, right? Because they're all 1 year to the next with those guys. But Spates has a lot of speed. Again, he's learning the NFL, right? He looks lost in coverage sometimes, but he's got speed. He closes the gap soon. He's played really well. And I was not one of the guys, but I'm happy to jump on that bandwagon, pay my ticket to join that bandwagon. So I don't know if the Rams need a linebacker in the draft. They have to be thinking tackle. They have to be thinking corner, obviously. They have to be thinking wide receiver. Tight end, I think they got another year with Higbee after this one, or maybe 2 more years with Higbee after this one. They got Colby Parkinson tied up for another 2 years. They got Davis Allen still on his rookie contract. I'm not sure what they're thinking in terms of tight end because, as they've always said, the hardest position to play for Sean McVay is tight end. And I don't understand the ins and outs of that. But if you go back to the days like Tyler Higbee was drafted in the 4th round of the 2016 draft by Snead under Jeff Fisher. And Gerald Everett was drafted in the 2nd round, I believe, the first year that McVay was there. And you could tell Gerald Everett by far, speed, talent, hands, ability to get downfield. He was by far the superior athlete. But the guy who got the contract extension, I think in 2018, was Higbee. They loved Higbee because he blocked, right? And they let Gerald Everett's contract run from 2017 to 2020, and then he left as a free agent. He's kind of bounced around the league. Hasn't had much of an impact in Chicago this year. He was with the Chargers last year, the Seahawks before that, and you haven't seen much of him this year. I don't know. Did he get hurt or what happened to him? I thought we were going to see more of him in Chicago. And so the tight end spot's been brutal for the Rams, right? Been brutal. Here's the funny thing. Okay, I'll let Steve Ramirez talk about this, former sports writer guy. He would remember Billy Truex, Billy True, then Bob Klein. I saw Bob Klein. He was like an extra tackle on there. They didn't throw him the ball much, even though he was a first-round pick. Then you had Terry Nelson, you had Victor Hicks for a year. You had Mike Barber, David Hill, who was basically a glorified tackle. Damone Johnson, who was a project the Rams got a lot of clicks out of. I liked Pete Holohan, but he was limited, and he had already had his career with the Chargers. Roland Williams, there's never been a great Ram tight end. The greatest tight end in Ram history is Tyler Higbee, right? And you don't think of Tyler Higbee because he's not up there with the tight ends we see today. But yeah, and he's had some bad drops. And I've looked many times to say, get rid of his contract. And yet the Rams extended him because they obviously believe in him and stuff. So anyway, yeah, that's an interesting thing to see what the Rams do in terms of draft. Let's see what we got here. It is 3:28. I got to start rolling here. Let's see. Came on early. My man. Let me look at this. Nothing really big in Rams history. Nothing too much. Here's a happy day just for you. December 2nd, 2018, the Rams beat Detroit 30-16. There you go. They won in Detroit 30-16. So maybe that's something that's going to encourage Ram fans today. All right. Cool. Any other questions or thoughts out there? Man, I went 57 minutes. You guys are a lot of fun. Okay, guys, I think I got to go because I got a meeting at 6. I got places I got to be. That's why I came on early. I'm going to have to watch the game on delay tonight. But thanks for joining me. Please check us out on From the RamCave on Spotify. And thank you for your support. Thank you for joining me at this early hour. I really do appreciate it. Please leave your comments and hit subscribe if you haven't hit subscribe. Curtis, Tim, Mike, USA Expat, all you guys, Teddy, thanks for joining us today. God bless.